What makes new Simply Summer's Eve Feminine Wash different? It's simple. Seriously, that's the answer. It's made with simple ingredients. Ingredients that help stop odor and help you maintain a naturally healthy pH, gently and effectively. Here's what Simply Summer's Eve ingredients do not include: harsh chemicals, dyes, alcohol, or parabens. And it comes in light, refreshing scents like mandarin blossom and coconut water. New Simply Summer's Eve Gentle Foaming Wash and Cleansing Cloths. Gentle by nature. Click the tile to learn more.
Because we don't understand how life formed, it is difficult to estimate this probability. The likelihood of a complex molecule like DNA being created by random collisions of atoms in a primordial ocean is fantastically small. In an infinite universe, it would happen in some places, but they would be very far apart. If we want to find advanced intelligent life, our best bet is to listen for radio signals.
Look up to the stars and the forest that surround. Do you see them? Do you hear them? Are they there? SpacedOutRadio.com presents S4 with Forest Moon Paranormal's Eric Cooper and friends. Also, take the time to join the Forest Moon Paranormal Facebook group.
I knew I should have made a left turn in Albuquerque.
Conspiracy, Area 51, Dogman, ghosts, cover-ups, UFOs. The hidden will reveal itself.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go live on S4 with Eric Cooper.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to S4 with Eric Cooper, broadcasting live from the beautiful mountains of Concrete, Washington. And now, without further ado, your host, Forest Moon Paranormal's own, Mr. Eric Cooper.
Hey, good evening, S4ians, and yeah, it's a rainy night tonight. I'm surprised. It's been hot. We had, 51 days without rain, and now it's raining. So, yeah, tonight's an exciting night. We have R. Keith Andrews with us tonight, and he's going to be a regular feature on S4. We have the roundtable next week, so don't miss that one. So I'm not going to go into the Global Paranormal Initiative too much, just that it's still moving along. We're picking up the pace. We got new teams joining daily, and we have R. Keith Andrews is also going to be on the panel of the Global Initiative as our alien race specialist. So look forward to that. And so we're going to start off the show tonight with our Keith is going to start from the beginning and tell you how he got to learn about alien races and where he started from. So go ahead, our Keith Andrews.
Well, thank you very much. I do appreciate it. It's kind of a long story. I could give you the real Reader's Digest version and go with day one. My first encounter was literally the day I was born. Well, in all fairness, it was slightly before that. I was still in utero when I found out about it. But the day I was born, I ended up in an incubator because of birth complications. I was actually born mottled green and black. And that apparently was a really bad color. So they put me in the incubator. And the reality of it, from people's standpoint, everybody says birth is a wonderful experience. Well, rest assured, I remember mine quite well, and it was not enjoyable. So, net result, the day I was born, I flatlined. I literally left my body and headed for home. Bad idea. Do not astral travel while you're in utero. Doctors get really testy. I ran into Council of 12. Now, I know it sounds like science fiction, and rest assured, my life sounds more like science fiction than just about anything else. So, I ended up running into the Council of 12, and I'm facing these 12 different-looking people. And they asked, they cut me off, stopped me from going home, and said, what are you doing? Like, where are you going? And I went, I'm going home. I've had enough of this. And they turned around and went, no, you signed a contract. You've got a major job to do. I looked at him and I said, I didn't sign up for this abuse. Well, long story short, the way I got brought back in, the doctors on Earth decided that, quite frankly, electrocuting me in my eyes, but they actually used a tiny set of paddles to bring me back. And net result, here I am. Since then, I've been dealing with various different races. To date, I was running through a list of them the other day, and to date, I've dealt with approximately 55 of them thus far. Well, 55 if you include humans.
Right.
Right. And it started out as abductions, as in various races picking me up against my will, very much like many of the unfortunate people have had, until such time as at the hands of the military, I was actually terminated. And I do mean that quite literally. I woke up in the morgue. The reality of it was a race that I know as the Srazazians, which are a reptilian race, 7.5 to 8.5 feet tall, were directly responsible for me actually being here today. They literally stepped in and saved my life. I'm not quite certain how I got from them to the morgue, but I do know when I woke up in the morgue, I thought I'd woken up in a barracks. My father was kind enough to inform me that it wasn't a barracks, it was in fact a morgue. So after that, I actually went to a shrink, and it was a shrink that uncovered the fact that I'd already been off-world. Right, by the time I was 5, I'd already been off-world. And he turned around, and we did a lot of work together. And I went from being an abductee to being a contactee. And at this point, I'm in regular contact with over 50 different races, helping them understand why humans do what humans do and how to connect with them without actually trying to kill them. Because I'll tell you, trying to kill the human race is going to be a problem. In spite of the fact that they could destroy the planet, don't get me wrong. But they'd have to in order to wipe everybody to wipe out humans. And then they'd have to go to a couple of other places.
Now, Keith, who's, in your opinion, who is the worst race that's a threat to us?
That's a direct threat to us?
Yeah.
I presume you're referring to in the immediate future.
Yeah.
Well, debatably, but one of the worst ones, in all fairness, are what I call Teklik, which are a 4.5 to 5.5 foot reptilian race. They are not infiltrating the government, but they are quite happy to take humans as dinner. And I don't mean to invite you to dinner.
Which reptilian race is infiltrating the government?
Well, that's the thing. In all fairness, no race in particular is. There are certain hybrids that have actually gotten in, but this idea that people have been propagating that everybody in the upper echelons of multiple different governments are reptilian is frankly wrong. From everything I've seen, that whole fear, now somebody mentioned an author that had brought it up, but if you think back to the late 70s, early 80s, there was a phenomenal show called V. And that seems to be where the majority of people have come to this brilliant idea that reptilians are shape-shifting vagabonds that are infiltrating the governments around the world to screw up our political system.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, no, go ahead.
So, I mean, the concept of them coming here to screw up the political system, mankind's already screwed it up. The only time the off-worlders would have to screw it up is if mankind would quit fighting with each other and actually start working towards putting a global government together. And I don't mean a global government that people get treated poorly. I mean one where everybody is actually treated equally.
Now, do you think there's any races out there that are involved with the human dissension?
Oh, there's no doubt. Now, when you're talking, something we've got to be clear. That I'm aware of, there is not one race on the whole that is involved in human dissension. There are individuals, absolutely. But likewise, there are individuals that are working rather heavily on the concept of trying to get humans to work together.
Now, somebody asked in the chat a few minutes ago about the Council of 12. Now, from my understanding, it's the Council of 9 now. What do you know about that one?
Well, the Council of 12 is the head council. Okay. The Council of 9, there are a number of different councils depending on the area. Okay. And the reality is, when it depends on what they're up to as to which council you're referring to. I'm not sure the Council of 9, I've heard of multiple different councils of 9, councils of 7, a council of 5, depending on, if you will, the sub-project. Okay. So I'm not certain which one they're talking, that the individual you were talking to is referring to. But
they mentioned, they mentioned the Council of 12.
Okay. Yeah, because the Council of 12 is a council. That is the council from the Galactic Consortium. And the way they do it is they will have 12 different races. They go through a very long process of figuring out which races are going to be directly representative, right? Because they're not going to have one member from every race available. It's not functionally feasible. So they take the 12 most even-handed, most equal-eyed, that look at people equal, right? And they put them on the council. Now, they never have more than one of any given race on the council. Okay. And the reason they use 12 is because all they do is go, here's the overall view of what has to happen. And it's black and white as far as the overall laws go. But when somebody has a problem that doesn't directly contradict what the council's already set in motion, they turn around, the Council of 12 will vote on whatever the problem is. And if in the case of a tiebreaker, it's the individual that is asking the question that gets to make the choice.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So, I mean, that's essentially the way the Council of 12 works.
Mm-hmm. And jumping topics here real quick. So, to my knowledge, there are 16 races that are involved with the abduction of humans. Each with their own agenda, whether it's the hybridization program, whether it's for their own science, whether they're their own. I know there's one race that's abducting only for social policy, basically, because they like watching how humans interact socially. Things of that nature. What do you think about? What do you think about that?
Well, the numbers
are more.
There's definitely
is there more or less.
No, there's definitively more.
Okay.
Although it's a toss-up depending on who you talk to in some cases, whether they're abducting or whether they're inviting. Personally, I call it coercing in most cases.
Okay. Yeah.
But the other thing you have... Go ahead.
No, go ahead. 'Cause I want to hear about the races you know of that are abducting, and what's their purpose for abducting. I know each one of them has their own purpose, but what's your knowledge of that?
Well, the Greys are the scientists. They're actually the orchestrators of the hybridization program, and they are pure scientists. Okay. The hybridization program, just for a quick side note, is the program they use to grow, to hybridize between between two races, not just humans and others, but interracial all the way across, to help grow cultural translators. Okay, kind of along the same lines as what a universal translator machine is, but far more effective. When you take a look at the Strazazians, that's more of a cooperative thing. That's not technically an abduction issue. They literally look for volunteers and that side of it. Now, they do abduct to find out if people are even to go, but they don't take them very far until they know whether they're willing to work with them. Okay. Tekla take people, well, frankly, for snacks.
Right.
Okay.
I'm familiar with the Tekluks. Are Tekluks the ones that are in the mountains here in America?
Quite frankly, they are. They're not the only ones that are up there.
Okay.
Okay, but they are up in that area. I've also seen somebody on YouTube had one showing up, and I don't know what city it was, running through the sewers.
Okay, I think I've seen that video.
Okay. When you take a look at the Nords, they, quite frankly, are still working with the Tekluks, with the humans as far as collecting them up, checking evolutionary standpoint, they're essentially Nords, if you will, look at humans as, in a lot of ways, their children, even though the Nords were not the ones that built the human race in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, when you take a look at the ant folk, frankly, they are looking for weaknesses in humans. They're looking to figure out how to beat them, if you will, aside from grabbing the clothes.
Right.
You have essentially the same sort of an issue with the mantis people, where they are trying to figure out what makes humans tick. Because humans have some staggering abilities that scare a lot of the off-worlders.
All right. So,
yeah.
So I have a question here. I'd like to put one in here too. We have discussed on S4 here a lot of times the race Mater, and how kind of, as far as our research has gone, as far as how hateful and pretty awful they are towards the Earth. So I kind of would like to get your input on that race, if I could.
The Mater and the Vlash. Have you ever heard of those two?
Heard the terms, just trying to figure out which. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I take it the Maynard are a feline race?
No, they resemble Greys. They've been mistaken for Greys.
Okay, yeah. I wouldn't exactly call it hatred. The problem is that they see the Maynard see the human race as an inferior race. Okay, and where it is, the hatred, if you will, boils down to jealousy. Because so many of the, number one, the consortium has said, no, you cannot wipe this race out. That's just plain not going to happen. Mm. And that has ticked them off to no end. Okay, there's some pretty distinct differences in their approach. The Greys are pure scientists. That's just all there is to it. With the Maynard, they literally are looking for anything to discredit the human race. Any way at all that they can say they're not as good as what everybody seems to think.
Okay, now with the Vlash, because and I know some of the terminology we probably use comes from our research, and they're probably similar races to what you know, but by different names. And, so one of the theories and one of the stories I've heard is that back in Christ's day, Jesus was a race called Charistus. And he died on the cross, and had he been left alone, he went back to his planet, or taken by his craft, and had he been left alone, there would be no Christianity, because it would have ended there. But because of the manipulation of religion by the Vlash, they planted one of their hybrids to be resurrected, which is the resurrected Jesus that came back, and which is why even in the Bible and Christians will say that the Jesus that resurrected was different than the Jesus that was born, or that was around before he was crucified. So in order to propagate the religion and keep it going, the Christ that came back was a Vlash hybrid. Have you heard this story?
I have. This is where things get really complicated. Okay. What I missed from you, so I'm just going to ask you to repeat it, just because, quite frankly, I'm sure I'm partially deaf on occasion. What was the name that you said that they're claiming that Christ was?
Charistus, K-A-R-I-S-T-U-S. And I'm probably pronouncing it wrong.
Oh, that's okay. Quite frankly, I know that particular race. The ironic part of it is this is where it gets complicated. Was Christ born? Yes. Was he hung on the cross, etc.? Absolutely. Did he get back up? Yes. The problem was he wasn't a hybrid.
Okay.
Okay. Was he different than before he died? Absolutely. I can tell you from firsthand experience, that'll happen to you. You look at the world very different. Okay. From his standpoint, when he came back, it boiled down to his passing opened way too many, like it opened up way too many questions. And he, at that point, realized he'd made one massive oversight when he first came to Earth. You know, when he was first born to the planet, he made one massive miscalculation. When he tried straightening humans out, well, he actually made two, but the first one, the big one I was referring to, is he forgot to include the off-worlders in the first place.
Right.
Okay. Like, he tried dealing head-on with the humans. Okay. That was the first mistake he made. Well, technically, the second one. The first one was he permitted the people to think, permitted any people to think they were the chosen ones. There was no chosen group of people. Okay. Some religions have this brilliant idea they were the chosen people, that Christ chose them. Well, that's along the same idea as you take a crowd of people and you put them all in an auditorium and have somebody come in and talk to somebody in the room. And that individual says, I was chosen first. It wasn't you were chosen first. It was just you were talked to first. Okay. There's a very big difference between hunting down a specific person and turning around and trying to say, this is, these are the people that are my children. All he did was he talked to the first people he came to and tried to start there. And unfortunately, where he made the miscalculation was he didn't correct it right at the get-go. So by the time he was put on the cross, he quite literally realized that he had made a couple of major miscalculations.
So I got a question coming in here from the chat room. John T. says, are the Velash often mistaken for the Dracos like the Mater are mistaken for Greys?
So, quite often they are. Oddly enough, the Dracos are also, there's another race called Tormanon that are also mistaken for Drakes, for the Dracos. The idea that all humans look alike kind of falls into the same branding as all reptilians look alike.
Oh, real quick, I've got a question. I've got a question coming in from Robert Rose in a chat. Why do you think a mantid in a robe showed up with his? Let's see. Why do you think a mantid in a robe showed up with my wife being pregnant?
Well, there's a number of possibilities there, but one of the most obvious from my end is you're dealing with somebody that knows that the child that your wife is bearing is going to be connected, is going to have an ability to understand or to interact with the mantids. So this is likely not the last time you're ever going to see them. They are likely going to be watching right from the get-go.
So a special child.
Very, very high probability. A mantid showing up in a robe, that's one of their healers. One of their key people, if you will.
Gotcha. I've got another question coming in. Hold on. So who and what was Moses, and was Moses Merlin?
Oddly enough, the answer to that is, who was Moses? Well, Moses is a complicated situation. However, was he Merlin? Yeah, they're one and the same person.
Okay.
Okay. The who is a little bit more complicated. And rest assured, the lineage behind Moses is really complicated, but they are both, because they're one and the same, of course it's both, but they were, quite frankly, part of the planet itself. That was why Merlin could do what he could do. That was why Moses could connect the way he could.
Okay, makes sense.
Okay, I think I heard Everett tried to cut in with a question a little while ago. Everett, did you have something you want to ask?
Yeah, I just had a question, Keith. With all of these races that are mistaken for grays, what do you think of the idea or the hypothesis people are throwing out now that some of these grays may be animatronics or droids, some sort of robotic entity?
That's correct.
And soulless.
Mankind actually built robotic gray. Okay. And it was literally done with the intention of being able to mislead people, quite frankly, to help, if you will, in building the fear. You know, if you can keep the human race afraid, they won't actually pay attention to what's going on. Okay, but the Greys themselves are not, they themselves are not constructs, any more than humans on the whole are constructs.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so who was Houdini? Was Houdini alien?
No, Houdini was just an extremely talented stage mage.
Okay. It came up in the chat. I don't think that was a direct question, but yeah. His Trippin was saying early Houdini, he'd send people to towns before he'd show up, but I was curious about that.
Well, yeah, and heck, curiosity has fueled phenomenal research, so knock yourself out and ask.
Okay, so all these questions, and I'm trying to formulate them all. Go ahead.
Yeah, when you deal with Houdini, when you deal with the Angel, Chris Angel, you're dealing with people that have phenomenal capacity, but they're human. Okay. I met a chap very similar to Houdini that could pop himself out of a set of handcuffs faster than the cops could get into their car. He didn't like handcuffs, so he took them off.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so just to clarify, because they're still talking about Jesus in the chat room. So what race was Jesus?
Jesus, for lack of a better way of putting it, essentially was human, but he was connected to the planet. Okay. He is, when people talk about Jesus being the Son of God, essentially correct, but not quite as literal as people think. Okay. The way it actually reads, in all fairness, Christ was, it's not a question of he was the son of so much as a part of. Okay. Christ went way beyond the norm. And I noticed somebody asked, well, what if you don't believe in, who is it? Native Earth Lady says, what if you don't believe in Jesus, then you have no aliens? No. If you don't believe in Jesus, that's okay. I don't believe in half the garbage that I've heard other people talk about. the thing is, it's not a question of whether people believe in him. It's a question of whether or not somebody created a situation or was able to do certain things that went beyond people's understanding at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, because everybody wants to know where Jesus fit into the picture. And does it apply to the human race or to the off-worlders? Yes, because quite frankly, Jesus was known off-world by many names as well. It's not just a question of him only being on Earth or only being in the Middle East. Jesus spent many years walking around in the original, like in North America, before people actually realized North America was here, like before Westerners did.
Right.
Okay.
Now, Don, real quick, Don wants to know, did Jesus actually die?
Not by his terms, by human terms, yeah. When he was hung up on the cross, when he was actually crucified, did he, in fact, by human definition, pass away? The answer is yes. Ironically, when he was stabbed in the side, that actually ultimately saved his life. Okay, because it let the toxins bleed out of his system, whereby his enhanced healing rate, given the time in the tomb, was able to thereby regenerate himself.
Right.
Okay, so was it technically dead? No, but humans wouldn't know that. And I mean, quite frankly, especially look back even into the Middle Ages, when, into the 1800s, when people were being buried in England alive because the doctors thought they were dead.
Mm-hmm.
So you had touched on something there. We were talking about the Greys and how they weren't a built race and stuff like that. However, there is supposed to be a synthetic, robotic, however you might want to put it, race called the X5 Takut. What do you know about those?
Well, quite frankly, they are. The X5 is quite literally a construct. Okay, and they were designed for a quite literal infiltration, exploration, figure out, get in without anybody having any control over them, except, like, any understanding of them, except the people that built them. Because it's very difficult to actually get a read on a robot unless said robot is actually sentient. Okay, if it's a living robot, and they do exist, frankly, then you can get a read on them. But if they are strictly a robot, even with the most advanced AI, even with the most advanced AI in an actual robot, they still come across as a robot.
Okay, what do you know about, what are you being told about this war that we're in the middle of? There's supposed to be a window of 2017 to 2022 where there's a lot of races, a lot of new races that are coming to the planet, or coming into our solar system. And there's a window where they're looking for select people that are supposed to have an implant. And who finds these select people with this implant kind of determines what happens after 2022. Have you been told anything about that?
Well, in a manner of speaking. And what I mean by that is you're referring to the year 2022, I presume.
Yeah.
Okay. Just so long as we're both on the same page.
Yep.
Number one, the reason they're looking for the war that they're talking about is not a war to be held on Earth. Okay. That's first and foremost.
Right.
They're referring to a war that is to be fought off planet. And yeah, it's the reason they're looking for specific people is because if they can, whichever race manages to get a hold of said people, think they get an upper hand. Okay. Intriguingly enough, it's not going to work out quite the way that the other races are thinking. You see, you're looking at kind of a shell game, because the consortium itself is charged with one thing: making sure that the planet stays in one piece. Earth itself is a staggering repository of knowledge, and that's what the consortium is here for. But because of humans' ability to handle what humans are calling zero-point energy, and the humans' capacity to jump from a perfectly logical situation to a complete screwball approach and still win, humans have a reputation for being able to turn the tide of war in the interstellar fields. So they're looking for people that have that added key, if you will.
Okay, so John's got a question. Is this the war in heaven in the book of Revelations?
It's one of them, but yes. It's a massive war. See, the war in heaven is basically, it really does boil down to who's going to control the planet. Intriguingly enough, this is where it gets a little screwy. Okay. The consortium is not the creators of all the rest of it. Okay. When you start looking at the war in heaven, the premise is that God created everything, and then Satan ended up popping up and trying to take it all away.
Right.
Essentially. That could be more misleading than the reality, but I'm not entirely certain how. Okay. The reality of it, of the war in heaven, is a number of different races that have a similar background, but in order to understand the whole concept of it, you got to go way back to before Earth was built, before the ancient races got here, before mankind ever hit the deck. Okay, because the people that built man, although technically speaking, man was created by God, you got to understand there's a few extra steps in the middle of that. And when you go to the war in the heavens, you're talking about a war between multiple races from various different places. Essentially, it's along the same lines as what World War II was with the Axis and the Allies. Okay. Right. But look at it from a galactic scale. Okay. Because do understand, angels are real, demons are real. They're two different races. It's not a question of some of them being bad people. Okay. It's a question of quite literally being two very different races. We could get really complicated here, because if we understand that aliens are simply refers to not being from Earth, okay, and we understand that when you push either metaphysical capacity or technology far enough ahead, whatever race you deal with is going to see you as a god. Now, I mentioned Earth being constructed. It was built by, for lack of a better way of putting it, by spirits, by non-corporeal entities. Okay, and the war that is going on is over who's going to control essentially the library. Now, the thing is, mankind was chosen. Mankind, not one color, not one nationality, not one heritage. The human race was chosen to take care of this planet, to take care of, if you will, the library. Okay, so the question is not who is going to control the planet, so much as who is going to have the biggest impact on the human race. And thus far, that's proving to be a bit of a problem because humans don't pay attention. And they certainly don't. Go ahead.
Real quick, John's got a question that I find interesting, too. He finds it interesting that Revelation 12 refers to Satan as a dragon. So, dragon isn't a reptilian?
That's what they are essentially claiming, yes.
Okay. And, to me, that makes sense.
Absolutely.
In a sense. In a sense, it does. Because, I mean, if you take all the religious texts, we all know the Bible isn't completely accurate. It's not completely intact because the Vatican's got half of it hidden away in their vaults. But then you take the Mahabharata, you take the Torah, you take a lot of different texts, you put them all, they all have pieces.
Exactly. That was actually the key that you have to understand. Okay. And we've gotten really sidetracked. I'm noticing in the chat room there's a lot of confusion going on about multiple things, but it was asked one day of me, if you were God, wouldn't you pick one religion and say that's your religion? And I looked at the person and I went, no. Actually, what you do is you take all of the truth. You give one piece to every religion that's out there, and you tell them point blank, if you want to understand it, get along. Okay. Mm-hmm. That was where the confusion arose. And mankind has been fighting with itself over who had it right. Okay.
So let's talk about the Vatican for a second. Why is the Vatican hiding so many books and so many, documents? And why do they want the truth hidden?
A little hard to control. It's a little hard to control a population if you actually give them the information to make up their own mind.
So it's the elites doing it, and what I call the cabal.
Ultimately, yes. Or, in all fairness, the elite wannabes.
Right. So BTO wants to know, who is God? Are we part of God? Are we individual universe creators beyond this universe? And what else can I ask? He can ask lots more.
Yeah, there's a wide array. Okay, number one, are we all a part of God? Technically, and before anybody jumps on, oh, you're talking Christianity. No, I'm not. It's just, if I want to start talking, like I was asked one day to be honest, totally honest, when I answer a question, well, I'd have to list off the leader of every religion, known and unknown. So I just choose to use the word God because it's short and easy to pronounce.
Right.
Okay. Every human that comes here is a part of God. Okay. But let us understand that, and it tells you this in all fairness in every one of the religious texts, God is in everyone.
Well, that was in the hidden books of Thomas.
Okay. See, I'm not well read. I just have memories.
Yeah, if you watch the movie Stigmata, they bring up the hidden books of Thomas, where even in the hidden books of Thomas that the Vatican hid, as you can buy it at Barnes & Noble now, but, even in the movie Stigmata, they came out and said, God said he is in every stone, he is in the trees, and he's not in a damn building. He's all around you. He's in you.
Yeah. And that is very correct. Now, is every human part of one singular God? Well, if you go back far enough, the answer would be yes. However, at the point where Earth was constructed, at the point where the original denizens were created. Basically, it's multiple different, if you will, gods that became the humans, that took on the human form. Okay,
Right.
but understand, those entities originally came from a higher source beyond that. Okay, humans have a problem where it comes to understanding that it's not a question of does God exist, it's a question of God wasn't the top of the totem pole. Okay.
So who was?
Well, this is where we run into a problem. There is technically no top.
Okay.
Okay. That's where it became an issue. Now, when you come down through the ages, the issue of everybody has the capacity. Christ himself told people, and for that matter, so did Buddha and so did half the others, all that I do, thou shalt do, and more. Meaning, people are able to interpret dreams. People are able to heal at accelerated rates. People are able to change the molecular configuration of certain things. It's all physically possible. Can it be explained? Well, yeah, but you have to start looking into the quantum magnetic flux, and you have to start looking into the neural net to understand how it works.
Right. Now, real quick, Don wants to know, so why would the Pope be special enough to get this info? And why would he hide it?
Well, it wasn't so much why he was special enough to get it. It was a question of why he was pushy enough with the people before him to grab it. It wasn't a question of it got given to him, so much as he got a hold of information as he went along and buried it, claiming that it was either wrong or what have you, and hiding it from the rest of the people.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and Native Earth Lady... Oh, go ahead.
The Pope himself was not chosen to lead the people into war. The religious leaders were chosen and were approached to guide mankind into a peaceful interaction. Needless to say, mankind screwed that up kind of royally.
Right. So Native Earth Lady wants to know, she heard they have proof that all humans have alien DNA in them. Have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, what it boils down to is that if you don't understand something or you haven't figured out how it fits, then it's alien. Humans were built of the earth. Okay, there is no question there from my recollections, from everything that I've seen. They were built from the earth. Because of the complications involved in creating them, and because of the fact that humans weren't the first race that was built on this planet, the connection was literally done, or the evolution was actually it was accelerated beyond normal evolutionary standpoint, based, and you'll love this one, on the native simian culture. Okay, so when you talk about man being built or being made by God, this is correct, for lack of a better way of putting it.
Mm-hmm.
But the link is because it used a native animal to actually make it happen. But we're not talking about infusing it with a different DNA. We are talking about technology that was able to accelerate the current DNA and its already, if you will, pre-organized evolutionary potential. It just got picked up in pace.
Okay.
Okay.
Now you hear through different channelings and through different people that have talked to aliens, different races, that some of them actually worship a goddess. What do you know about this?
Well, in all fairness, that makes sense, considering God, as you know it, is both male, female, and other.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Being pagan, many pagans actually follow or work with different gods and goddesses throughout what people see as mythology, which is to us reality.
Right.
So yeah, it makes sense to me completely. Now, do I follow aliens that are? To me, I kind of see it as a parallel in that a lot of alien races are actually worshiping the same goddess that many pagans are.
Bingo. And I noticed in the chat room, BTO has mentioned, Beyond the Omniverse has mentioned, I will respectfully disagree that we are part of God, but it's okay. And, it sort of depends, and I certainly respect that side of it. The way I look at that, though, myself, is if God created everything, then there is a part of God in everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's just that black and white from everything I've seen. Okay, but the nice little part about it is that when people can realize that the true power of mankind, and for that matter of the various different races, when people realize that society requires laws, but unless those laws apply to everyone equally, it's going to fracture society. Okay, you cannot have a law that applies to only one group of people. Okay, no. Because if you do, you will have a subculture evolve. All right, that's where it gets to be very complicated.
All right, guys, I've got to interrupt here. We're getting ready to take a break. And ladies and gentlemen, we have to take a break here. And when we come back, we will continue the discussion of off-worlders, UFOs, and how they're interacting with our planet. Also, next week, we are going to have a roundtable discussion where we will cover all things paranormal. Stay tuned. We will be right back.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and I want you to come on a nightly journey. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, every Monday through Friday, you can come hang out with me and the other space travelers. We have it all from Carl the Alien bouncing on by to those misfit gnomes causing havoc. It's 3 hours of fun and entertainment on those topics the mainstream really doesn't want to touch. Come get all paranormal with us at spacedoutradio.com, and together, my friends, along with our resident guitar god Bumblefoot, we own the night.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories. From alien encounters to the latest conspiracies, you won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
The SOR Sightlines is a place for you to find answers to your strange experiences. Hi there, this is Mike Schmidt. If you have had an encounter with ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, ETs, or anything else that doesn't make sense, head to spacedoutradio.com and file a Sightlines report. All information you give is 100% confidential, and I will personally help you find the answers you need. SOR Sightlines, your answers are a click away.
Welcome to Spaced Out Saturdays with me, Dave Cruz from Beyond the Strange. Our weekly feature on spacedoutradio.com will take you around the world discussing everything from the paranormal to the latest conspiracies from the top guests in their fields. We won't leave any story uncovered. Spaced Out Saturdays at spacedoutradio.com starting 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed on tonight's show by tonight's hosts and guests are not necessarily those of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays, Spaced Out Sundays, or spacedoutradio.com. Listener discretion is advised. And now back for hour number 2, we have Corey Ruiz, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal, and S4. You can find Forest Moon Paranormal on Facebook. And for more information on S4, visit spacedoutradio.com. And now, here's Eric Cooper and Corey Ruiz.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to S4. For all of you who may just be tuning in tonight we have R. Keith Andrews, and we are talking all things UFO and aliens. R. Keith, welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you very much, and I'd like to say welcome to all the people in the chat room as well as the listeners that are even just dropping in. Talk about a fast hour.
Yeah, and just like Spaced Out Radio, everything goes quick for the 2 hours we're on, and and I'm excited to announce that yes, our Keith is going to be at the roundtable in Paracon as well. He'll be at one of our VIP roundtable guests. So get your tickets because we only have 29 tickets available total, and you might want to get your tickets now if you're going to be here, because they will go fast. So, anyway, where were we? We were talking about the goddess that aliens worship, as well as many people on Earth.
Yes. And I'm just going to sidetrack you here for half a second, but does this mean I need to find a way to buy a VIP ticket? Because I should put my name in for it.
No, because you're one of the panelists. You don't buy a ticket.
Just thought I'd ask.
Everybody buys a ticket to see you.
But
that's that's actually how we fund our Paracon, is through VIP ticket sales, vendor ticket sales, sponsor sales, and whatnot. That's how we fund it, and that's how we keep it free. We still don't even break even, and it comes out of pocket a lot. But yeah, that's why we keep a free Paracon, because we're not trying to make money at all. You look at UFON symposiums, you look at all these other so-called Paracons, and they want to charge you like $50 to $100, sometimes $200. People can't afford that. And for a Paracon, to me, it's everything paranormal, from UFO, alien, Bigfoot, cryptid, and hauntings. It's not just one-sided. So that's why we run our Paracon the way we do.
Yeah, and I certainly appreciate that myself. I mean, I'm in very much the same boat as you are. The point being, if it's not normal, then it falls under that category.
Right.
It's that simple.
And I do Flores Moon paranormal promos once a week, and I even get ridiculed and harassed and whatnot by some of the groups going, "Why are you talking about UFOs and aliens? That's not paranormal, and that doesn't belong in our group." Really? Then why the hell do you have a paranormal group? Because it's all paranormal. It should all be talked about. And as I said on the show before, I've been approaching all these different teams for the Global Paranormal Initiative, and out of, I don't know, 200 to 300 teams, maybe 10 of them even remotely look at UFOs and aliens.
Yeah.
That disturbs me. Because you have abductees that are going through just as much terror as someone that's being pushed down the stairs by a spirit. The difference is we can remove the spirit or pass them over. But the abductee, until recently, we've been able to stop aliens from abducting recently. And before that, though, what are you supposed to do? So you got abductees that are being terrified just as much as the haunted victim. But we aren't going to look at that because it's not paranormal. Huh?
I said sometimes more so.
Yeah. What do you know about the Travis Walton incident?
Well, I actually met Travis, and I actually got to know him really well over the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. And the reality behind it, I actually laid out for Travis what happened on his ship when he was taken. Mm-hmm. And he looked at me, and his comment to me was, "There's only one way you could possibly know that information." Right. And I says, "Yeah, and how do you figure that?" He says, "You had to be there." I says, "Well, I told you I was watching this whole situation since it first started." Now, understand, when Travis was taken, at that point, I'd have only been 12 years old. By the time I was 12, I was already spending more of my time off-world than I was on-world. Okay. So the issue, the whole thing around Travis was it was an accident to start with. It wasn't the abduction that Hollywood made it out to be in Fire in the Sky.
Right.
Okay, and Travis has started coming out to try and correct this problem. Okay, because even from his standpoint, let's face it, it was traumatic beyond belief. Right. But that was a rescue mission on their part, and they had a heck of a time trying to stabilize it.
Now there's a new movie that Peter Robbins is supposed to be on the show tonight. Now, because of the time zone difference, he didn't realize we were running so late, so he had to back out. We'll get him on a pre-record soon. But he just did, he was the co-director of a new Travis Walton biography that came out, I believe, last year.
Yes.
From what I'm understanding, when he ran, and if you haven't seen Fire in the Sky, you've got to watch it. It's a good movie. But
movie.
Did he not run? He ran underneath a UFO, and it killed him. So they pulled him onto the craft and basically brought him back to life. Is that not how it happened?
Essentially correct. Like I said, it was an accident. He got too close to the machine, to the ship.
Right.
And the bioelectric field that was set up, that was running, shorted his out.
Mm-hmm. And, that makes more sense. To me, it does. I mean, when I saw the movie and when I was studying the case back in the 90s, because I've been in this field since 94.
Right.
I was kind of thrown into this field, boots, feet first. But, so, yeah, it makes more sense than just some random UFO that decided to snatch him up instead of the rest of the guys that were in the truck that witnessed it, So he basically died from the field, and they're like, oh, hell. And so they pulled him up and resuscitated him, essentially.
Essentially, yes, but there was a lot more work that had to be done.
Okay.
They essentially had to rebuild the nervous system, and they didn't have a lot to work with, because I'll tell you, the energy that runs through those ships, to say the least, is a little extreme. Okay, and it wasn't just the Greys that were on board that ship. Okay, they had to bring the Nords in because, well, when they started bringing Travis around, he couldn't relax. Let's face it, he's looking at Greys. That's not exactly the most human-looking thing on the planet.
Right. So that was a multi-race ship that they had?
Yeah, quite frankly, it was. They weren't there to create a problem for Travis. It was an unfortunate side effect.
Okay. And again, that makes sense. Now, there was a situation here, I guess, a year ago, and maybe you're more familiar with it. I've never heard of this, but the individual that witnessed this, it was like a strobe light. We're talking they're in the middle of the mountains. There's no people around. And it was like a strobe light that was about human height coming through the trees. It was dark, so he couldn't actually see anything but a strobe light.
Right.
And it seemed to be attracted to his kids. He pulled his pistol out and he shot at it. And it left. It didn't get hit, but it left. What do you know of? Do you have any idea what that would be?
Well, by the sounds of it, first of all, the reason it left was very simple. It was approaching out of curiosity. And the reason it was attracted to kids is because kids are far more open and far less afraid than adults ever have been.
Okay.
Okay. Now, exactly which race, that is a toss-up. Okay. I really can't give you a definitive on that one. I'd have to take a look at it. Am I more familiar with it than you are? Highly improbable. Mm-hmm. You at least got the news report.
Right.
And I just plain don't watch the news. But
the
behavior you're referring
to. This is a guy that's actually Enforcement of Paranormal. So, I mean, I can actually get more details if I needed to.
Yeah.
And he's actually on our team. But, yeah, it terrified him. We're talking, this is a military vet that doesn't get terrified. And this terrified him more for the fact that it was coming towards his kids than anything. So that's why he reacted. But, yeah. And so, yeah, I told him straight up, yeah, it's not an alien to me. He's also had a Bigfoot encounter recently this year. Now, that leads to my other question of you. Is Bigfoot in any relation to aliens? Are they working together? Is Bigfoot alien?
Bigfoot, a.k.a. Gigantopithecus. Human evolutionary step. Still around, naturally able to vanish into the woodwork because they understand camouflage better than mankind ever did, and even better than chameleons understand. Chameleons being, the little lizard. Okay. They are not alien. They are not extra-dimensional. They are flesh and bone, some of the nicest people you'll ever run into. Okay. When we talk about gentle giants, Bigfoot is the gentle giant.
And until you intrude on his space.
Well, in all fairness, until you start creating a problem for him. He doesn't, Bigfoot, and I'm talking the race, not the individual. The race does not see the woods as theirs. Okay. But they do see the woods as a necessary part of their environment. And unlike humans who seem to believe that littering their own environment and poisoning their own food sources is a good idea, Bigfoot doesn't agree with that.
Okay.
Okay. Yet when I ran into Bigfoot on the island, 50 years ago now, it was Bigfoot that led me back to the campsite. Okay. I ran into a small family of them. I actually, in all fairness, ran into the little guy first. And I'll use the term little a little loosely.
Right.
Okay.
The kid of the family.
Yeah. I ran into the kid, or he ran into me. I'm not sure which. I was not in good shape because I was lost.
Right.
Okay. He brought me back to his parents. We sat long enough for them to calm me down. And then they walked me back to the edge of where I actually was, where my parents were. Mm-hmm. They didn't come out of the woods, but they pushed me back, said, "There's where you belong, go home."
Now, do they speak to you telepathically, or how do they speak to you?
They have a series of chirps and howls that they use.
Okay. I'm familiar with that.
Okay. By no means are they, if you will, telepathic.
Okay. Yeah, because I've heard the tree knocks.
Yep.
They like to hit logs against trees. And it was funny because they were toying with us. They were playing with us because we were deer hunting. And we were up on top of the mountain behind our house here. And we found a trail that went back in the woods off the logging road. And we walked down it, and we heard the tree knock. And, I've been asked, are you sure it wasn't a woodpecker? I think I've been in the mountains for years. I think I know what the difference between a woodpecker and a log hitting a tree is. And so me and my buddies dropped our packs, and we walked over to where we heard it, which was about 100 feet down this trail.
Right.
And we saw a log sitting next to the tree, and there's nothing around. No footprint, because it was all pine needles, so there's no footprints or nothing.
Yeah,
we're like, huh. We looked around. We looked around for a good 5 minutes, didn't see anything moving. And we walked back to our packs, picked up our packs, and it did it again. Like, are you serious? I'm not going back. But yeah, he was just messing with us. So what do you think about gifting sites? I know I've been told that you can hang up CDs from tree branches because they love shiny stuff. You can put marbles on top of rocks and whatnot, and oftentimes they'll come and they'll take the marbles and they'll leave you a gift of a crystal or a gift of some sort. Do you do this?
Myself, no, but there's a reason for that. You see, I can get lost in my own house.
I got you.
Going out into the woods, I don't go camping because that would be a case of I know how to start a fire in the whole thing, right? And I mean a controlled one. And then I have to figure out how to signal to get 911 to come and find me.
Yep.
That's why I don't go out in the woods a whole lot.
You're gonna have to come. You're gonna have to do some wilderness survival training with us.
Well, that is a possibility. My dad actually spent decades in the woods, right? And he could tell what direction he was going. It didn't matter where you dropped him; he'd find his way wherever he needed to go.
Right.
Me, I'm really good when I get off planet. Not so good on this one. It's kind of like computers and I have an argument. But give me a holographic interface and I'm at home.
So what's your thoughts on Chupacabra, on Mothman, on all these other cryptids besides Bigfoot? We'll go off on other cryptids. What's your opinion of the other cryptids that people are finding?
Well, number one, the Chupacabra was actually a pet, or more to the point, a series of them that ended up. The Chupacabra is not technically from here. Well,
it's an off. So it's an off-worlder pet.
Yes.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing. Okay, where did it come from?
Oddly enough, it's reptilian in nature. Okay.
So what about Mothman?
Now, the Mothman, in all fairness, I'm really not too familiar with it. I've heard of it, but I haven't had a whole lot of interaction with it.
Okay,
which puts me at a little bit of a disadvantage on that one.
Right.
I know I've heard about it, but researching it is not my strong suit.
They're supposed to be seeing more sightings of Mothman in Chicago, I think it is, of late.
You know, living in the Chicago area, we hear a lot about how Chicagoans are having these sightings, but there really isn't much talk about it. In fact, I was going to ask Keith what his take on the whole Chicago Mothman incident is or was, but if you're not that familiar with it, you might not know. The thing is, here in the area, it's not really generating as much of a firestorm or as much attention as it seems to be everywhere else.
And that's quite normal. I mean, it's kind of, in all fairness, that falls under the same category as the Ogopogo in Kelowna here, in Okanagan Lake. In Kelowna, it doesn't generate much discussion, but I'll tell you, it sure gets it around the world. But I'm going to have to take a look into the Mothman thing to actually be able to give you at least an understanding from what I'm looking at. Because in all fairness, I'm not with it, with the Mothman issue. I'm really not that familiar with it, and I haven't had a lot of people bringing it up to me.
Okay. Let's see. What about Dogman? I'm not into Dogman so much, but because there's reports of it, what's your take on Dogman?
Well, Dogman is actually a relatively easy problem.
Okay.
Dogman, there are such things as lichens. Okay.
Right. Okay.
Well, now lichens. Let's understand. We are talking a race. We're not talking about a group of people that transform from
shape-shifting humans.
Yeah. When you're talking about Dogman, you're talking about a hybrid. Okay. You're talking about somebody that was born half human, half lichen. Okay. And he certainly doesn't exactly behave like a human, and he's going to have a heck of a time hiding amongst them in plain sight. Okay. So what you're looking for is somebody that knows how to disappear. There's no question he is primarily carnivorous. I mean, that's just a necessity on his part. Okay, but you're not looking for an evil entity by any functional stretch. Okay, but there aren't that many hybrid lichen that are around from any of the subspecies. Bear in mind, lichen is an overall racial designation because it boils down to animal-based or apparent animal-based is more accurate.
Mm-hmm.
So are most of these cryptid species something that started off-world?
Most of them? Yes, not all of them. Okay. For instance, you take a look at, let me put it this way. When you take a look at things like the Loch Ness Monster, the, Ogopogo, those, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but those qualify as what you guys call cryptids, right?
Yeah, the water-based cryptids.
Yeah. Okay. Those aren't exactly cryptids. They're dinosaurs.
Okay.
Okay.
That actually makes sense.
When you take a look at your Bigfoot, at your Yeti, at your abominable snowman, they're all, quite frankly, different, if you will, nationalities of the same thing. And they're not off-worlders. They're Gigantopithecus. Okay. When you start looking at some of the other ones, there's a lot of them, that come out of and you usually hear about them from my standpoint in the horror movies. Things like the, what the heck was it called now? I'm trying to think. There was a water-based, well, sort of water-based.
The Megalodon?
Oh, the Megalodon is definitively a dinosaur.
Okay.
Okay, that's just plain. That was supposed to be extinct. That's kind of like the coelacanth. Okay, they were supposed to be extinct. They're not.
Okay, real quick. Native Earthly wants to know, there's been more sightings of alien in the oceans. Is there a reason for this?
Yeah, because mankind has managed to poison more of the planet than what had been counted on. And the native races that are here are starting to get a little testy. So what you're finding is more of the aquatics surfacing, more of the, like the merfolk, which are native to Earth. Okay, same as the seafaries are native to this planet. They're starting to surface to try and deal with it. Okay.
So they're basically trying to heal the oceans.
Yeah. And if that means sinking a ship or two in order to do so, and I don't mean sinking oil tankers and having them leak all over the place. I'm talking about the ships that sink that there is no functional explanation for.
Now, Greenpeace does that.
Greenpeace, oddly enough, is actually on the right track in a lot of cases, although their methodology leaves a lot to be desired.
Right. They're the ones that are derailing radioactive trains in Germany because, they don't like radiation, radioactive waste going through their train tracks. We'll derail a train and then we're going to, ruin the earth even more with their radiation. Their methodology's got much to be desired.
Granted, radiation is a problem. And granted, it's something that is dangerous to transport, but derailing the train is not going to help with the safety.
No, not at all. It makes you wonder where they don't think big picture. They think little scale of, we don't want the train coming through, so we'll destroy the train, and the night is destroyed even more than just the train.
Yeah, that's where it becomes complicated.
Now I have a Nordic question for you. And from the research I've done, you've got different continents have different races that are visiting them. Now, are the Nordics still more European? Are they still visiting more European nations?
For the most part, the answer is yes. Now, they have emigrated to a degree, and they have reached out into the into the Americas. Okay. Primarily because of necessity. You see, as the Europeans expanded into the Americas, the Nords had to go with them in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of to, shall we say, keep an eye on them. And this is one of the reasons why the Nords were involved in the whole fiasco with Travis.
Okay, I got you.
Okay, but yeah, primarily the Nords are over in Europe for the most part, and more specifically in Northern Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, when you look at the Thrasazians, they are North American based on the whole. Okay. Dracos tend to get around to pretty much anywhere they can because, well, frankly, they want to control it all. They don't care who wins. They don't care who thinks they're in control. The Drakes want to be in control.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They don't care what puppet they have underneath them. you know?
Right. Now, who... I think I heard you talking about it on Spaced Out Radio with Dave, the Illuminati.
Yep.
The Illuminati, are they infiltrated by aliens?
Well, frankly, no. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are undoubtedly some amongst them. But the Illuminati has been around since, quite frankly, spirituality and misconception and misdirection ever came into play. And I get a kick out of it because I ran into the Illuminati a few years back, and I was literally looking at one of their neat little trinkets, and
you should have snatched it up.
Well, I was not expecting the reaction I got because I'm sitting there. And he's talking to somebody. I asked him if I could see it, and he handed it to me. And I'm looking at this thing, and I'm in my own head pulling it apart, looking inside it, the whole 9 yards. And then somebody mentioned, came up beside us. And I know who it was, but I'm not about to say who it was. But somebody came up and told the chap, "Oh, so you've met Keith? He's a local psychic." Well, I kid you not, the guy grabbed the thing out of my hand and without a word of a lie, raced across and put about 15 people between me and him. And I'm looking at my empty hand going, well,
damn it. So, okay, so Native Earth Lady wants to know, Keith, with some of the stuff people are doing, like in the UK, fire in the concert, I heard that's happening due to alien mind control. True or false?
Crock. Aliens aren't trying to blow up anything. Mankind is just blaming anybody they can so that they don't have to take responsibility for it.
Right.
Okay. If the aliens wanted to blow up something, picture this. Okay, you go to a stadium and you're an alien and you want to make a statement, you want to blow something up. They will vaporize the stadium. If you're lucky, they'll vaporize the stadium and not kill the people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But this is not a question of alien terrorism. Humans don't understand the one problem with aliens. Okay. Humans, when they talk about terrorizing, they think about blowing up a building or downing an aircraft. When off-worlders talk about terrorizing an area, they talk about flattening a planet. Okay. Or devastating at a small scale, devastating a continent. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking more of a huge crater where, L.A. used to be, something like that.
Yeah. And you're on the right track. And they wouldn't do it by coming in and bringing a suicide bomber. They would blow the thing up from orbit. If you're lucky.
Now, real quick, BTO wants to know, so have you met yourself... Hold on. Has Mr. Keith experienced himself beyond this universe, met the universal creator, and experienced the universe within this multiverse? That is, yourself.
The answer would be yes.
Okay.
How was that for subtle? When I actually was 20 months old, I ended up completely screwed up. I ended up taking a fever that was nobody's fault. Nobody did anything to me. I just ended up getting it. Drove my temperature up to 108.4 and flash fried my hypothalamus. Now, many years, and that had its own whole set of side effects, but somewhere around the point of, when would it be? Early 20s, I guess. I ended up in a place where I ended up on this, and I don't know a good way of describing it. Picture the most brilliant gold you can imagine and then push it a little further. Okay. I was standing on the edge of a beach, and there was and I'll use the term gentleman there a little loosely. And his first comment, because I came through a portal, and I ended up on this beach behind the guy. And in all fairness, it wasn't exactly a guy, but we'll use the term just for simplicity. And he goes, "You don't belong here yet." I said, "Well, the door was open." Right. He goes, "The door was not open." I said, "Certainly it was." "No, it wasn't." And this argument went back and forth for the longest time. And he finally looks at me and he goes, and when I say looks at me, the look in his eyes was something bizarre. Now, it was definitely like he took on a humanoid form for simplicity. I'm pretty certain. And he looks at me and he finally says, "You opened the door." I said, "Well, of course I opened the door, but it was open when I came through it." Right.
So you irritated him.
Well, no, I just answered the question he had made. I just responded to what he told me, and I wasn't kidding. The door was open. Right. Well, the flood of information, the flood of understanding, of compassion that this thing had, for the planet itself was absolutely phenomenal. Right, there just aren't any human words that I know of. I don't know of any spoken words at all that really convey it. But he made it very clear that it was time for me to step forward and do what I could to actually put people back on track, to get people to realize that regardless of where you come from, regardless of what your heritage is, your so-called birthright, on this planet, work together. Okay. Now, this isn't the first time I ran into him in my lifetime, and I'll use my lifetime as very deliberate. I don't mean in the last 50 years. I've been here a lot longer than that.
Mm-hmm.
The other part of that question is, have I ever seen the omniverse, the universe myself? You know what the Big Bang Theory is? Like I don't mean the show. I mean the overall theory.
No, the one that the CERN is trying to create or recreate.
Yeah, which is real brilliant.
Yeah, we did a show on CERN, and yeah.
Yeah,
I love having Markham on here when we talk scientific stuff like CERN, because he blows us all away.
Well, let me put it this way: I've seen the big, myself, and I know this sounds like science, like science fiction, but welcome to my life. I've actually personally witnessed the Big Bang 3 times. I just haven't gone back to see how many more I remember.
No.
The Big Bang is an ongoing cycle. It's not a surprising event, really. From my standpoint, it's kind of, shall we say, redundant.
Kind of like a nuclear bomb 11 billion times over?
Yeah, that would be putting it mildly. Think of it this way. Think of it this way. It's constantly recycling itself.
Okay.
Okay. And, it will happen again, but, the Earth will die in time in about another 5 billion Terran years.
Right.
Okay.
Is that what happened to Mars?
Well, in all fairness, no. Mars was a bit of an accident. Mars, in all reality, was a problem with an astronomical event that essentially flash fried. It was a near miss by an asteroid that tore the atmosphere off it. Okay. Didn't quite remove it entirely, but close enough to count. But it didn't wipe the planet out. It just so happens that the race, the Martokians, which are the people that live there, much as they're green, they are not short. Quite frankly, they moved underground. Okay. But we are not talking about an uninhabited planet, and this is something that the scientists of today don't want you knowing, amongst other things.
Hold on a second here.
But, Mars itself wasn't an act of war. It was simply a complication. So Not that they didn't see it coming. They just didn't know what to do with it.
Right. So I've heard theory that has stated that the universe basically, as it expands, bends itself back around to touch itself again. And once it does that, that's when it creates that recycle. Is that... would be true?
It's a cute theory, and it undoubtedly causes complications. But the way it essentially works is you're dealing with a mechanism based in the black holes. Okay, where matter is pulled through the black holes, broken down to its molecular component. Well, in all fairness, subatomic molecular components, and spit out on the other side. At which point, and bear in mind, this happens on the other side as well as on this side, where it gets spit out through other mechanisms, through the other end of a black hole starting on the other end, and gets reformatted into what evolves here. But when we talk about evolution, it's not as random as people think. It is guided, but mankind is not advanced enough, if you will, to see it, to see the way it is put back together. Much like mankind 50 years ago couldn't see the triple helix, but now they can. About 20 years ago, they managed to find it. It's a question of they're not able to get out of their own way just yet. Okay. But because the universe itself does not end where humans have figured out the end is.
There truly is.
They've only just figured out where the, shall we say, visible, at least in Terran perspectives, end is.
There truly is a lot of things about this universe and everything in it that we just don't comprehend. That's for sure.
So I'm going to take us down a different path real quick. What do you think about David Paulides and the missing 401, and why are people missing? Are aliens partially the cause of it?
Absolutely. Now you said the missing 401. Obviously, we're not talking the plane, the
missing
road.
He's got a book and a research series called Missing 411.
Oh, okay.
And it's about the thousands of missing people in national forests.
Yep.
And I go to the alien side for the simple fact that we have the reptilian race that lives in the mountains. Obviously, not all thousands of people are missing because of the reptilians, but I think some of them are missing because of them.
Absolutely. Not just them.
What? Say again?
It absolutely, off-worlders, and for that matter, ancient races, are responsible for a chunk of the missing people.
Right.
Okay. Many of the missing people, as I'm sure you've already ascertained, or surmised is a better word, many of the missing people simply get lost, get killed, and get absorbed by the forests.
Right.
But there are quite a number of people that get taken. There are a number of people that have been taken voluntarily, as in wandered off because they didn't like their life, came across one race or another, and not exactly asked for asylum so much as wanted to leave. They just didn't want to be part of mankind anymore.
So, but some of the patterns, because he's got a whole cluster of different patterns. A lot of them are by water, and a lot of scientists, a lot of doctors, a lot of scientists are being taken or disappearing. Yep. And the other weird aspect of it is you've got. So I used to be in search and rescue, and I know how operations go and whatnot to an extent. But they, in a lot of these cases, they actually had search and rescue teams that scoured an area, and 3 days later found a body in the exact same area that they had just scoured three days before.
Yep.
And in the very few cases where they actually found the individual alive, it was complete blackout amnesia of what had happened, and what they did recall saying was they saw a monster. Now, I think in some of those cases they are alien. Why they got returned, I have no idea. You might have more input in that one.
Well, there's an extra little pocket of a problem that also exists out in some of the outback areas. But the reason they get returned, more often than not, that's one of those situations where you have a race that picks them up, does their exam, potentially tags them, not always in a visible tag, and puts them back. Okay. The other thing that can cause somebody to disappear and show up again is if they step into a time pocket.
Okay.
Okay. Now, you cannot travel backwards in time. You can look backwards in time, but you can't go there. Okay. And if you step into a short duration time pocket, you can vanish for a few days. No track of you. Your brain will shut down. You'll have no understanding of what happened. Okay, because it goes into a place that is very much out of sync. And then when the bubble pops, all of a sudden you're back where you were with no knowledge of how you got there.
Okay. Like a screen memory.
Pardon?
Like a screen memory.
Essentially, but it's actually more like a neural overload.
Okay, gotcha.
Because when you step into a time pocket, what you're doing is you're stepping out of time, and your body goes into a bit of a catatonic shock, kind of like wiping your hard drive almost.
Right, makes sense. We're down to 15 minutes. I want to hit my labs. So you've got You've got a lot of abductees that describe seeing military personnel working with aliens, and they call these my labs.
Yep.
But is there a difference? I mean, some abductees are saying it's only military. I'm kind of on the fence with, well, is it really military, or are they projections?
Well, let me put it
military. It's actually alien races.
This is one of those topics where I have a little bit of a challenge with. My labs are very real. I actually suffer from PTSD because of it.
Okay.
Okay. And without getting too carried away with it, I watched 197 of my friends get murdered in a MyLab laboratory. Okay. Is it all strictly military? Pretty much. Are there aliens involved? Yeah, but that's actually where things get complicated.
Okay.
Because the contract was that mankind, humans, were supposed to work on the medical side of things and figure out how to help humans, how to heal them. Humans decided that turning it into a weapon was a really good idea.
Yeah.
Now,
We're
could I tell you
and not trying to get too personal. Were they U.S. military, joint military? We talking multi-militaries or one government?
Oh no, we are definitely talking multi.
Okay.
Okay. Frankly, I'm in Canada, and it was up here that I dealt with it.
Mm-hmm.
But the different scientists and the different military people were not all Canadian.
Okay.
Okay. But that was where I ran into it was in a MyLab setup that I ended up with that I ended up getting terminated.
And the aliens essentially brought you back.
Yeah, but the bloodbath that they created to do it was something else.
Okay. Now, was the Dulce Wars due to a MyLab?
No, Dulce is actually an underground complex. It's actually a multiracial underground complex.
Okay.
It's not actually MyLab, although do the military have access there? Yes. But that is far more, shall we say, in sync with what the consortium is aiming for than it is with anything else.
Okay. So we're down to 10 minutes. And I'd just like to say thank you, Keith, for coming in the show, and we'd like to make you a permanent fixture for damn sure, because, I mean, all the questions, and we haven't even talked about half the topics that we could be going into for sure. And you're definitely an asset to this show, because that's all we talk about is UFO, alien, and conspiracy, which they all go together.
Yeah, pretty much.
So.
They are kind of connected.
Real quick, Everett, Corey, you guys got any last minute questions?
Not that I can think of offhand.
Oh, they'll come. They'll for damn sure. And,
you know, Keith, one thing I wanted to ask, you said that we can travel forward in time but not backwards. Does
Correct.
that essentially mean that time travel isn't possible?
Time travel is possible forward. And what happens when you move forward is there ceases to be any record of you here until the point that you resurface. People vanish and 10 years later show up again. That's time travel. And time travel wormholes do exist. But people that say we're going to go back in time, what ends up happening is, if you try and go back, you can go back and look. Okay, there's no question. You can take a look. But if you go back and you try and change something, what you end up doing is creating another timeline that you're not part of. Okay, so you'll never see, you can't go back and retroactively kill somebody you don't like. Okay, like you can't go back and kill a creep's mother in order to stop said creep from being born. Okay, you can't go back and stop a fire from happening. And the neat idea of, is it possible to watch what happened? The answer is yes. The issue around the idea that people come back and people get visited and told what's going to happen, in all fairness, they're reading it backwards. What's happening is they're actually looking forward, seeing the event or seeing the side effect of the event, and translating it backwards to, here's where we are. If we don't stop this, it's going to happen. Unfortunately, most people don't get enough warning to be able to do anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been my theory, and I don't know if I'm right on this, but basing it off of physics alone, that time travel, at least in the reverse, wouldn't be possible simply for the fact that everything currently in front of us are made up of all of the same atomic particles that something else was made of back in a different time period. And that to travel backwards in time, you would have to rip apart everything at the atomic level here to reassemble it at the atomic level of that time period to do it. So you would effectively destroy your current time period and the whole universe around it.
Very well explained. And ultimately correct. The basic reality is there's only one past, but there's umpteen million futures, because the future hasn't been written. Once it's written, you're stuck with it. So essentially, the way you just explained it works extremely well.
Cool, I got something right.
So what about wormholes?
Oh, they're very real. And they are actually one of the reasons why interstellar races are capable of traveling the distances they do. If you think back, when I was in kindergarten, there was a book out called A Wrinkle in Time that explained it beautifully. And that's ultimately what a wormhole is.
So, and what I've been explaining to people for, the last 6 months, I didn't really get into the alien race side of things until about December, actually about November. Prior to that was straight abductions and working with abductees. But if you look at cloud formations, a lot of the craft that we see today are actually cloaked in clouds. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely, that's the case. It's easier to hide them.
Yeah. Now, the trumpet noises that people are hearing globally, and you see them in YouTube videos and whatnot, and there's no explanation for them. Would you agree that that's a propulsion system for some of the newer craft?
Well, some of it, yes. However, the other thing is, when you take a look at the other thing that goes hand in hand with that, which is the rumblings that everybody hears, those are built underground. Okay. And that's a whole different complication. But the trumpet is it's a gear shift, if you will, for lack of a better way of putting it.
Okay. And I had a question, and it just slipped my mind. I hate it when that happens.
Yeah. It's a terrible thing, but, I don't miss that.
It is. And I've been working late hours getting, because, again, I've got 5,000 different paranormal teams that I've got to connect with, and out of 5,000 teams, we'll probably get a couple hundred that are in this global initiative that we'll create. And which is sad because, ego and we don't need no help, and we've been doing this for 5 years, and we're professionals now. Yeah, okay. Good luck with that. You'll last another year.
We're professionals without any diagnostic stability or any trackable way of quantifying what you're doing.
Yeah. And these are the ones that watch TV and learn everything from TV and want to go find them a ghost. And when they find one, they get so terrified they run out of the house and leave the client high and dry. Now they're even more terrified because they've been confirmed there is indeed a ghost there. But now what do you do? And that's usually when we get a phone call.
I mean, I know what I did was I went in and talked to the thing, found out what had happened. Seemed reasonable to me.
But yeah, just we have about 2 minutes, and I just want to say thank you again. And for those that are listening and haven't found Forest Moon Paranormal, this is the platform for S4. It is also the platform for the Global Paranormal Initiative that we're starting, which R. Keith Andrews will be the alien race specialist on the panel. And he's also creating our training for alien craft identification, which I can't wait to see that. But any final thoughts?
Well, ultimately, from my standpoint, just a couple things. First and foremost, I want to thank all of the listeners. I want to thank you and all of S4 for such an incredible opportunity here. But for pity's sakes, people, understand one little detail. All races on this planet are equal, and working together, you can actually make this place flourish way beyond your dreams. It's time to quit fighting.
Indeed.
Well, it's the humans that are stopping it.
Yeah, we have a bad tendency of that, that's for sure. All right. Well, I think with that, what we're going to do here is we'll go ahead and head on out. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you for coming in this evening, and I'd like to thank our friend R. Keith Andrews and guest for coming in and answering a bunch of questions for us, as well as Everett Thiemer from Spaced Out Radio was here this evening helping co-host. Next week, we are going to do a round table. Join us then, which should be a blast. And for any of you who don't know and haven't seen it, go check out Spaced Out Radio, www.spacedoutradio.com. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night and keep your eyes to the skies.
Ready? Okay. We got paper, yes we do. Wide ruled notebooks, pencils, glue. We got crayons, every hue. School supplies for your whole crew. Target's got everything you need to ready, set, go back to school.